Chair is none, so ordered. The following bills and resolutions on first reading and referral to committee. Clerk will read the bills and resolutions.
HB number 253 by Kitzman, relating to the establishment of the Institute for Animal Health Research and Response at Texas A&M University, referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. HCR number 13 by Guillen, urging the federal government to take immediate action to curb the spread of the New World screwworm in Texas, referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. Following resolutions are being referred to the Committee on Local and Consent Calendars. HCR number 14 by Vasut.
Following announcement, clerk will read the announcement.
The Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs will meet today at 1:30 p.m. in room 3W.9 in a formal meeting to consider pending, referred, and committee business.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonin for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to grant the request of the Senate to appoint a conference committee on Senate Bill 5.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The motion is adopted. Following conferees, clerk will read the conferees.
House conferees on SB 5. Bonin, Chair. Fairley. Gonzalez of El Paso. Kitzman. Raymond.
Members, we are about to go on the calendar. Chair lays out on second reading House Bill 17. The clerk will read the bill.
HB number 17 by Meyer, relating to the requirements regarding notice of certain property tax-related information to be provided by taxing units and appraisal districts.
Chair recognizes Mr. Meyer to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House Bill 17 is about transparency, accountability, and empowering taxpayers in the property tax rate setting process. Property taxes represent the largest tax burden most Texans face. Yet too many families are left in the dark about how these rates are set and what the financial impact will be. Under current law, taxing entities can meet their notification requirements by mailing notices or posting in newspapers and their websites. But in practice, many Texans only learn about tax changes when they open their tax bills, long after decisions have been made. Public participation in rate hearings is consistently low, raising concerns that critical decisions are being made without adequate scrutiny or taxpayer input. HB 17 requires taxing entities to mail notices prior to any rate hearing to every property owner while still allowing them to use newspaper postings as supplemental notices. The bill also requires additional information to be included on the notices, such as how much property tax was proposed to be collected last year versus what is proposed this year, including the percentage change, population growth and inflation figures to show whether increases align with actual community needs. ISDs will use student enrollment figures instead of population, and a comparison showing what the tax levy would look like if the rate only kept pace with population and inflation, so taxpayers can judge whether proposed increases are reasonable. By requiring consistent, easy-to-understand notices, HB 17 ensures Texans receive the truth about their tax rates and have the tools to hold their local governments accountable. This is a common-sense reform to restore transparency, strengthen taxpayer trust, and give the public a meaningful voice in the taxpayer property tax process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
Turner, for what purpose?
Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman yield for some questions?
Gentleman yield for questions?
I will yield.
He yields for questions.
Thank you very much, Chairman Meyer. This is the bill we heard in Ways and Means, I believe, just a couple days ago on Friday. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And I listened to your layout, and just so everybody's clear, this requires, correct me if I'm wrong, this requires any taxing entity to mail a notice of a proposed tax rate each year. Is that?
That's correct. That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And And is that applicable only when the tax rate changes or goes up, or is it every year,
Every year.
even if it stays the same,
Then the taxpayer should know about it. Yes, sir.
even if it goes down?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so when we talk about every taxing entity do that, so that would include a county government, is that right?
Yes, sir.
A city government
Yes, sir.
and a school district?
Yes, sir.
And then I assume other various special purpose districts.
You're correct.
Would they all need to mail individual notices, so a taxpayer would be receiving potentially 4 to 6 or 7 different notices, or is there an opportunity to consolidate to have one mailing?
Each of them will mail out separately so that a taxpayer will know specifically. Obviously, like your ISD is almost 50% of your tax bill, so it will be done separately so a taxpayer knows which entity and specifically applicable to that entity itself.
Okay. Let me just ask you specifically about school districts
Yes, sir.
right now. So every school district in the state would have to mail one of these notices to every property owner in the district, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does the bill provide any funding for school districts to offset their costs of doing that?
It does not.
It does not. Okay, so it's an unfunded mandate?
No, sir. It is another step in making sure that we have transparency at the taxing level so that our constituents and taxpayers know how much each one of these taxing entities is deciding to increase their tax base. And to me, it's just another form of good government that these taxing entities should have already been doing this. And so to have them put a stamp and mail a notice so that our folks can physically receive it like they do their property tax bill, I don't think is too much to ask.
Right, and you raise a good point about the property tax bill that we already automatically get that shows what the tax rate is and shows what the total tax.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So you raise a good point with the notices that are already mailed each year that show the total tax that a property owner owes, and it shows the various tax rates by the different taxing jurisdictions. That is the current practice, is it
That is
not?
current practice, but what this bill allows is for our voters, our constituents, to have say in what the tax rate is, have more knowledge, to be able to go to these tax rate hearings, to be able to participate in this conversation. And so they can receive their property tax bill well after the fact of what the rates have been decided. This is allowing for our constituents to have input because they are empowered with the additional facts and knowledge that will be provided in this notice.
Okay. And is it your belief that existing notice to the public, including all taxpayers, is when taxing jurisdictions publish their proposed tax rates on their internet website, when they post it in the newspaper, that those current forms of notice are inadequate?
I think there needs to be more, and again, this is also not only providing additional notice, it's providing additional information, but I think what the point here is, and it's a great one, and I appreciate you raising it, Vice Chair Turner, is when someone physically receives the notice and opens it as they do their property tax bill, they readily can access that information. When something is posted online or possibly in a newspaper, folks are not seeking that out. When it comes to your front door, then you will more likely look at that information, assess that information, and again, it's about participation in these hearings, and that's what we want to increase, and I believe this helps accomplish that goal.
Understand. Well, and I can appreciate that, getting a letter for people our age, Chairman Meyer. We tend to go check our mail and open our mail. I don't know how many people younger than us still do that, actually.
That is fair.
But my serious question, though,
Yes,
is
sir.
with respect to school districts. We just, and I know the legislature passes unfunded mandates on cities and counties all the time, so I'm not even going to belabor that point right now. But with respect to school districts, we just passed in the regular session House Bill 2, which provided a significant funding increase to our school districts. I would argue it was a good step, not enough, because our school districts are still underfunded and still struggling, frankly. And my concern is that this bill, House Bill 17, is adding an additional unfunded mandate to them that basically the money's got to come from somewhere. If we're not providing them the funding to meet this new mandate, that money is going to come out of the classroom. And just to give you an example, one of the school districts I represent, which I would characterize as a medium-sized district, looking at districts all across the state, is going to cost them over $30,000 a year just for printing and postage. So, not to mention whatever staff time is involved in producing the mailing. So, wouldn't that $30,000 in one school district be better spent in the classroom than on sending a letter?
I think it's an essential function of any taxing entity to provide our citizens the most accessible amount of information. I believe this is a step in that correct direction to provide our constituents, taxpayers, additional information so they can participate in the tax rate hearing.
Okay, but just last question, just to make sure everyone understands, there is no funding tied to this bill to reimburse our school districts or any other government entity for the cost of complying with this legislation.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much to ask these taxing entities to send out one notice to the property owners in their district at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Bryant, for what purpose?
I raise a point of order against further consideration of House Bill 17 on the grounds that the bill is not germane to the governor's call for this second special session and therefore may not be considered under Article 3, Section 40 of the Texas Constitution.
Mr. Bryant, please bring your point of order down front.
The point of order has been withdrawn. Following announcement, clerk will read the announcement.
The Committee on State Affairs will meet today at 2 p.m. in room 1W.14 Agricultural Museum in a formal meeting to consider pending referred and committee business.
Following amendment, clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Bernal.
The chair recognizes Mr. Bernal.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment, it exempts schools and school districts. And I'll tell you, there's two reasons why, aside from it just being generally a bad idea. The first is that the bill, as written, focuses on enrollment, but we fund schools on attendance. But the other is this: we just did school finance in the regular session, and of all the money we gave them, there's not one pot of money there that would pay for this, which makes this an unfunded mandate. There was an allotment, but the allotment can only be spent on certain things, and this isn't one of them. So by forcing districts to do this, we're essentially saying, you have a new duty and we're giving you no money to do it. While they've told us over and over again that they're cash strapped, that they're cutting back, and even the school finance bill isn't helping them in the way that we want it to. So this is an unfunded mandate, and for that reason, I would ask that you support it. Thank you.
Mr. Meyer in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members, and I appreciate Vice Chair Bernal's amendment. However, I am absolutely opposed to it. ISDs, as we all know, are the largest part of our tax bill, and so therefore they are essential to be included. And again, I don't think it's too much to ask to mail one notice per year to property owners in their district to allow for our folks to know, how the tax rates are being set. And I think it's important for our people and our constituents to be informed.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Grovenhagens, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentlemen yield for questions?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair,
Yields for questions.
just so that everybody can be clear on what you're attempting to do, because we had so much opposition against the bill, so much, probably 99.9% was an opposition of the bill. Could you help those of us that may be on the fence understand a little bit why the opposition was so strong, but yet we want to move forward with it, and your thought processes in thinking it's a good bill?
For sure, and thank you for that, Representative. As I said, this is about
Mr. Speaker, I can't hear a thing.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
Sure. As I stated in my layout of the bill, Representative, this is important to provide our taxpayers, our constituents, additional information before the tax rates are set. And right now, the participation in tax rate hearings is extremely, extremely low. So this bill and costs associated with it are to encourage our constituents, mine and yours, to participate in the tax rate setting hearing, because oftentimes, if not all of the time, folks don't know about the tax rates until they receive their tax bill. And so I believe it is essential for these taxing entities to provide notice once a year to those property owners in their district to provide additional information.
Is there any consideration given to now with the cost of goods and services going up, and we're limiting how they can grow? Have you thought about that at all in terms of the long-term impact on what happens with our cities and counties?
I don't think asking a taxing entity to mail one notice per year so that our constituents are better informed is too much to ask.
Well, I think it's more than just getting one letter. Isn't it also capping what our municipalities can do until an election is held?
No. I'm sorry.
I thought we're
I don't
reducing.
I don't understand your question. I'm
So
sorry.
we're
Please-
reducing from 3.5 to 2.5%.
Different bill, ma'am.
Different bill?
Different bill. Yes, ma'am.
This is just noticed?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bernal to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to reiterate, in HB 2, which was $8.3 billion, the allotment for basic costs can be used on transportation, hiring retired teachers, providing health insurance and employee benefits, payroll taxes, contributions, other costs related to TRS, utilities, property, and casualty insurance. That's not what this is. We've got teachers who are spending their own money buying pencils and pens and papers and folders, and now we're saying that you have to do something at large using your own money, and we haven't given them a dime to do it. It is 100% an unfunded mandate. Until we fix that, I'd move adoption.
Mr. Bernal sends up an amendment. Mr. Meyer is in opposition. This is a record of vote on Mr. Bernal's amendment. Clerk, ring the bell. Show Mr. Bernal voting aye. Show Mr. Meyer voting nay. Dr. Alverson voting nay. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Mr. Vidal? Have all members voted? Mr. Vidal voting nay. Mr. Vo voting aye. 56 ayes, 84 nays. The amendment fails to adopt. Anyone wishing to speak on, for, or against House Bill 17? Mr. Meyer to close.
Move passage.
Question occurs on passage to engrossment of House Bill 17. It's a record vote. Clerk, ring the bell. Mr. Meyer voting aye. Dr. Alverson voting aye. Mr. Vo voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? 85 ayes, 55 nays. House Bill 17 passes to engrossment. Chair lays on second reading House Bill 16. Clerk, read the bill.
HB number 16 by Leach, relating to the operation and administration of and practices and procedures related to proceedings in the judicial branch of state government, including court security, court documents and arrest warrants, document delivery, juvenile boards, constitutional amendment election challenges, record retention, youth diversion, court-ordered mental health services, and the powers of the Texas Supreme Court and jurors, increasing a criminal penalty, authorizing fees.
Mr. Leach for a motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I move to postpone further consideration of House Bill 16 until 1 p.m. today.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there objection? Chair is none, so ordered. Members, may I have your attention for a very important announcement. Today is Representative Hernandez's birthday. She's over there. Please join me in wishing Representative Hernandez a very happy birthday. Chair lays out on second reading SB 10. Clerk, read the bill.
SB number 10 by Betancourt, relating to the calculation of the voter approval tax rate for certain taxing units.
Mr. Meyer to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Senate Bill 10 will help reduce the property tax burden on Texans. This bill builds on the landmark reforms we passed in 2019 with Senate Bill 2. That reform gave taxpayers more control and required an election if local governments sought to raise taxes beyond the threshold. But despite these protections, Texans are still seeing their city and county tax bills climb. SB 10 strengthens these taxpayer protections by reducing the voter approval tax rate multiplier for counties and municipalities with populations over 75,000 from 3.5% to 2.5%. This ensures that larger taxing units, where the majority of Texans live and where the greatest share of the property tax burden falls, cannot simply undo the billions in property tax relief provided at the state level by raising their own rates. SB 10 is about protecting taxpayers, preserving affordability, and continuing the work we started in 2019 to make our property tax system fair, more transparent, and more accountable to the people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members.
Mr. Speaker,
Tinderhold, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman yield for questions.
I will yield for questions.
Gentleman yields
you.
for questions.
Well, I like the intent of the bill. I have some concerns. We looked this up. There's 1,225 taxing entities that are cities, municipalities. This only pertains to 55. Are you aware that 95% of cities and municipalities are not included in this bill? 95%.
I don't dispute. All I know is that we have it. Population 75,000 or under are exempt, and they still will, however, Mr. Tinderholt, be subject to the 3.5%
I thank you for
voter
that.
pro. Yes, sir.
Can you explain why SB 10 has that arbitrary 75,000? What created that?
Okay, and I will disagree with your categorization of being arbitrary. The thought process behind it is these smaller municipalities, these smaller counties have smaller budgets to where if they wanted to increase it by even depending upon the size of their budget, that the cost of an election for them would be larger than any type of reduction, and so it just didn't make sense, and so that's why these smaller counties and municipalities are out, because their budgets really don't get to the size to where it makes sense to hold a voter approval rate election.
So, do you believe that every city and every Texan deserve the same tax rate and the same considerations, all taxpayers?
I believe that we need to venture and do everything we can at the state level to provide lower taxes to our constituents.
Is it true that you have two cities? I have two cities in mind, that you have two cities in your district that are under 75,000. I believe it's University Park and Highland Park, is that correct?
That is correct.
Mine is Dalworthington Gardens and Pantego, and I'm confident that the people in my districts would want this same tax rate that, say, Arlington's going to have. Have you talked to the people in your two communities and like the constituents, and how do they feel about that?
But like I said, what we're trying to do is provide tax relief to all of our constituents throughout the state of Texas, but for some of the smaller communities, it makes sense to keep them at the 3.5%, where the larger ones will go down to 2.5%.
Is it fair to say that this bill favors political convenience rather than taking care of 100% of the taxpayers the same way across the entire state?
I 100% disagree with that statement.
Well, I represent DWG, and it's very small. We went through this discussion, I think, 6 years ago. Does that sound about right?
2019, yes, sir.
When we talked through de minimis, and I know that we talked about fire trucks and them needing to buy a fire truck. I feel that if we're going to have the larger cities do it, that everyone should do it. They should have to go to the taxpayers. I get that they're currently at 3.5% and they won't move. Actually, the smaller communities, the bill was actually different last time when we passed that bill the first time. They could have actually gone up to 8%. Is that correct or not?
I'm not advised.
Okay. I believe my constituents deserve the same benefit as everybody, and so for that reason, I oppose the 75,000 in this bill. I just don't like I call it arbitrary. I know that you have reasons for it, but my constituents are going to believe that it's arbitrary, and so I'm going to oppose that part of the bill.
Understood.
Thank you.
It's a little for what purpose?
So, gentleman, yield for questions.
Gentlemen, yield for questions.
I will yield for
Yield for
questions.
questions.
Chairman Meyer, my understanding is that this bill was brought pursuant to the governor's call for property tax relief for Texans. Is that right?
That is correct.
One of the problems that I'm having, Chairman Meyer, is that the cities in my districts have actually calculated the impact of this on the average homeowner. Would you be surprised to learn that the average homeowner in Lewisville, Texas, will save $10.99 per year under this bill?
I'm not advised.
Would you be surprised to learn that the average homeowner in Flower Mound, Texas would save $15 per year under this bill?
Yeah, I'm not advising, and quite frankly, Representative Little, I don't know how you'd go about calculating that at this point in time without actually seeing what the budget is, deciding where they're going to or if they're going to go above the rate, and how much they're willing to go above the rate with the election. So I don't understand how you could calculate those amounts at this time, but I am not advised as to the amounts that you're referencing.
Well, let me explain it. As I understand it, the calculation is predicated on the spread between the current cap and the proposed cap. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm just not advised to how this was calculated or how you would.
Well, Denton County, Texas has told me that this bill will result in a savings on average to the average homeowner of $6.94 in tax per year. Is that surprising?
Chair is not advised.
Is that the intent of the bill?
The intent of the bill is to make sure that to the extent that these different taxing entities want to go, being cities and counties, want to go above 2.5%, they need to go talk to their voters and ask their voters if they can. That is the intent of this bill. To lower taxes and to provide accountability. I'm sorry, Representative, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Excuse me. I didn't mean to talk over you either. I understand that's the text of the bill. It seems to me that the subtext of the bill is to provide property tax relief to homeowners. Isn't that the purpose?
That is the purpose.
Does this do that meaningfully?
It does.
And can you just walk me, a homeowner, through how this achieves that goal?
It achieves the goal by making sure that a county or a city over 75,000 have to go to the voters and tell them, hey, we need additional funds for X, Y, or Z, so the voters can have a say as it relates to going over a lower threshold amount, which is 2.5% rather than 3.5%.
And what should our voters expect in terms of diminished tax as a result of this bill?
Well, they should expect a reduction in their taxes, and that's what this bill accomplishes.
But my concern is that everyone in my district who has calculated this suggests that this bill roughly equates to a Starbucks run in tax relief. Is it more than that? Are they mistaken or are they right?
I'm sorry, Mr. Little, I couldn't hear you. Could you say that again?
The people in my district who have calculated this tax relief anticipate that it's going to be roughly equivalent to an annual Starbucks run. Are they right about that?
I think the amount of relief depends on your city, depends on your county, depends on what they're suggesting that they would like to go to.
Do you feel that this is meaningful property tax relief, Chairman Meyer?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative.
Ms. Mays, for what purpose?
Will the chairman yield for questions?
Gentleman yield for questions?
I will yield.
He yields for questions.
Thank you. As you know, I represent Irving. Our city
Yes.
manager appeared before the committee last week and spoke about his concerns along with a lot of other elected officials. One of his concerns is to request a minimum carve-out for public safety. Did your committee consider that? And if you did, what would be the reasons for rejecting that?
So what we discussed and was brought up in the hearing as well, that to the extent, this is not, and this is where it has certainly been mischaracterized. This is not a cap. This is a trigger. So for any city that wants to go above 2.5%, they need to present their case to their constituents. And if it's for new traffic lights, if it's for police and fire, go talk to your constituents. Say, we need to go to X percentage, and this is why. And I think it's important for our voters and our constituents to have a say. So this is not a cap, no matter what those cities are telling you. This is a trigger to say, hey, look, we're going to get voters involved. And if you need to go to X percent to cover whatever it might be, you can. For sure you can. But you have to go talk to your voters first.
And when you use the phrase talk to your voters, don't you actually mean have to put it on a ballot for them to vote on?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And then
But-
that
oh,
would
I'm
be a delay to whatever service it is that they're trying to provide, correct?
No, it wouldn't.
If they have to vote on things instead.
No, they project out, ma'am. They do their budgets and they project out how much going to cost and what they're going to need. And so, no, it would not delay.
The other concern that the city of Irving had that maybe some other city managers and cities shared was they also asked that you not bracket for cities under 75,000. And I think you already addressed that a little bit with Representative Little's question, but it puts Irving at a disadvantage, and the cities that are under 75 that are around them have an advantage in having more money for police and fire than the city of Irving would. Would you consider not bracketing the cities under 75?
No, as I stated earlier, the reason that we did that is their budgets are so small. The difference between the three and a half and the 2.5, it wouldn't make as much sense fiscally for them to have to hold a vote when the budget amount is probably very small.
Well, those are the two concerns my city has. It'll probably cause me to have to vote against the bill.
Understood. Thank you, Representative.
Ms. Cole, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield, please?
Gentleman yield for questions.
Absolutely.
Gentleman yields for questions.
We've had a little bit of a discussion about potential amendments because of the back concern of a lot of the larger cities with this. And I wanted to go back to some of the questions that Representative Little was asking of you. Are you aware that the state's budget has grown significantly from the city of Austin's budget over the last 10 years?
I'm aware that the state's budget has grown. Yes, ma'am.
So wouldn't it make more sense to put limits on the growth of the state's budget than further limiting the growth in local budgets?
No, this is about they're the ones who are setting their tax rates, and they're the ones where oftentimes it's misconstrued, thinking that we at a state level tax them. But as we are all aware in this body, that the local taxing entity are the ones who set the rates, who assess the taxes, and so this goes to address that issue, and that's what the intent of this bill is.
And you're aware of the difficulty with finding police and firefighters at the current wages that we pay and the competitive nature of those positions?
This bill will have no impact on that. This bill will allow for a city or a county to address that concern. They just need to have the voters approve it as well. If it is over the 2.5 from last year's budget, from the no new revenue rate. That's the other thing which is sometimes lost. They get the exact same amount of property tax that they did the year before. This is just increasing it over that amount. So they will have the funds to be able to do it, but if they need to go over that 2.5 for whatever reason, as I've stated, they just need to go talk to their voters about it.
Talk to the voters about it, and you understand that going and talking to the voters does involve some cost, but it's necessary is your position.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Could you say that again?
So you're going to force cities to go back to the voters to talk to them about these expenses?
Only if they're wanting to go over 2.5% above their no new revenue rate, which is last year's property tax. So in that instance, they would need to go talk to their voters, yes.
Okay, I will be looking at some of the amendments, and I hope that you take them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Manuel for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for just
Gentleman yield for questions. He yields for questions.
I will yield.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, I was wondering, how does this bill affect the local government Chapter 142?
You'd have to be more specific for me.
Well, when it is talking about the meet and confer agreements that the cities have currently with city, fire, and police.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you,
Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of noise.
Yeah, I just can't hear. I'm sorry. Representative.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
Thank you. I was wondering, how does this bill affect the local government Chapter 142 code?
It doesn't affect it.
So the meet and confer agreements with cities, with fire and police and their raises, this bill doesn't affect them at all?
I'm not familiar, Representative. I'm happy to talk to you about the meet and confer requirement. This just deals with lowering the voter approval rate from 3.5 to 2.5%.
Right, I get that one, but unless, from what I'm reading with the bill, it does have a conflict between the meet and confer agreements where cities have to basically, they have to give an increase to police and fire every year. And if they don't meet that agreement, then they would be in default, which would mean that they would basically lose that agreement and they would be basically faulting on it.
No, if they wanted to go over the no new revenue rate by more than 2.5%, and this was an expense, whatever that expense is, they just need to go talk to their voters about it and have the voters approve it. That's what this bill is
Okay,
about.
so go to the voters. Okay, so this is a question, and I'm going to kind of roll it into two. HB 1900 that this body passed in the 87th legislature, which was the anti-defund the police bill. That was the one that said we can give an increase only to police. We cannot do a decrease when it comes to police. So if you say we're relying on our voters and the voters choose not to not vote for that increase, and then we lose police funding, would this place cities where they would be in conflict with HB 1900?
No, at first, hypothetical, I'm not going to really get into that because, again, this is not a cap. This is a trigger. Should they need the funds, they just need to talk to the voters about it. And again, it's over the no new revenue rate. So they're already getting all the property tax they received the year before. This is talking about increasing it and being able to say, hey, look, this is the reason we need to increase it. Voters, do you approve?
Okay, I'll say it like this. I think the concern, one of the major concerns I have with this is that we passed legislation saying that the police can't be defunded for any reason. And we're saying that now you just need to go talk to your voters. But what if the voters of a certain city don't want to give an increase to police or fire for whatever reason? And it brings that city into a threshold where they're underneath where they once were, and then they are, in effect, defunding the police. That is something that could happen. It's not a hypothetical.
No,
it's something,
it shouldn't happen.
If someone didn't want to give more money to the police or because they had to, based upon their meet and confer agreements. Okay, let's say it like this. Let's say, going off of Christian's world, a city has an election, they don't go over the 2.5% threshold, they don't vote for it, and it brings down what the city is giving to the local police and local fire. Would they be in violation of HB 1900 by no fault of their own?
I think the cities should plan accordingly. I think the cities should take a look at their budget, see what they need to pay police and fire, make sure that is paid first. That's what I would tell them. I would tell the cities to plan accordingly as it relates to their own individual budgets.
So I'm just going to repeat it because I'm honestly asking. So what cities need to be doing in case something like this happens, cities need to prepare for, if there is a loss of funding, that they would be able to fund that on their own and then maybe have another referendum at a different time to try to get that, anything over 2.5%. It would be on the cities and they should prepare
I think it should be on the cities' ability to manage their budget, because that's what this is about. Is right now we have cities and counties taxing our folks out of their homes, increasing increasing the rates when not necessary. And so this bill is about accountability. It is about a city doing their budget the right way and making sure those parts of their budget that should be covered, police and fire, absolutely 110%, are covered. So I would put it on the cities and the counties to plan accordingly.
Okay, and lastly, do you think you would ever accept an amendment that would say there would be an exemption for police and fire, that they could do this so that we don't have them in conflict with HB 1900 from the 87th legislator?
No, as I stated, no, I will not. And no, I don't believe there's a conflict. I believe this is making cities take a hard look at their budgets, make sure they plan accordingly, and that's what this does. It provides accountability for our constituents.
Thank you so much for answering my questions.
I appreciate it.
Turner, for what purpose?
Mr. Speaker, with the gentleman yields.
Gentlemen have questions?
Yes.
He yields for questions.
Thank you, Chairman Meyer. Can you just tell us plainly what the purpose of the bill is?
The purpose of the bill is to reduce the voter approval rate from 3.5% to 2.5%.
Okay, and what will be the result? What will be the public policy outcome as a result of doing that?
It provides better accountability, transparency, and provides our voters to have a say in as it relates to cities and counties and them increasing their budget, increasing their rates.
Okay. Is a goal that ultimately, is it your goal or other proponents of the bill's goal that property taxes would be reduced somehow?
Yes.
Okay. How much will the average homeowner save per year?
It would depend on the city, it would depend on the county, the size of the budget, what they're wanting to go up to. There are too many variables to be able to
I understand. Yeah, I understand it's going to vary, municipality to municipality or county to county. But as we know, as we heard in committee, obviously the vast majority of Texas cities and 80% of Texas counties are not included in the bill, right?
Anyone under 75,000 in population is not included.
Right.
That's correct.
So it's a fairly small subset of cities and counties that are included. I think we heard testimony is about 50 counties out of 254 that would be included in the bill. And so obviously a corresponding number of larger cities in the state, the vast majority of cities are under 75,000. So just on average, what would the average homeowner save in one of those?
That's what I'm saying. As you just alluded to, whether it's 50 or 60 or however many counties and cities are affected by this, their budgets vary.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker.
Turn for what purpose?
Move to extend the gentleman's time.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there objection? Chair is none, so ordered.
As I was saying, Mr. Turner, it would vary because of the size of the municipality or the county, their budgets, what they're wanting, what they're needing, and so there are too many variables to be able to put a stark number on it as we would in other forms of compression or homesteading. It's just a different animal.
Well, okay. How about a range? I mean, can you provide a range?
I cannot because there are too many variables as it relates to the size of the budgets of the cities and the counties.
I mean, I heard one of our colleagues a few minutes ago, I think, allude to the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. That would be the rough amount of savings. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I mean, is it safe to say that the average homeowner would save, I don't know, $25 a year or $50 a year?
As I told you, Mr. Turner, there are too many variables to be able to calculate it as it relates to size and scope of the cities, their budgets, the counties' budgets, and their size as well.
So there's no estimate whatsoever about a range of savings that the average homeowner would receive.
As I said, too many variables to calculate because the size of the budget and the size of the cities and the counties.
And with respect to, let me ask it the other way, in terms of the average city or county that this bill would apply to, what is the average budget hit they would take, assuming they did not go to the voters to seek approval for a higher rate?
Again, it would depend on the budget, what the budget was, the size of it, what they were going to, what their no new revenue rate. There are too many variables to be able to calculate that.
Okay. Are you aware that one of the cities I represent, the city of Grand Prairie, which I would characterize as a mid-sized Texas city, it's about 200,000 people or so, that they estimate that they would take a $900,000 annual hit from this bill if they did not go to the voters for approval. Would you be surprised to know that?
No, I just think I think that by a hit, I'll go back to my previous statement. This is not a cap. They just need to go explain to their voters and the city, and good citizens of Irving, why they need additional funds and what they need it for, and then let the voters have a say.
Right, and the cities I represent, as I'm sure the ones you do as well, routinely go to the voters for different items they'd like the voters to consider approving, usually in the form of a bond election. I think that's the way it's usually done. But this brings it into a whole nother realm where simply routine budget matters that occur on an annualized basis potentially have to go to the voters. As Mr. Manuel just discussed with you, when public safety accounts for more than half and sometimes up to 2/3, nearly 70% of a city's budget, I don't see how there's not a public safety hit that our local governments are going to take, and then they're going to have to go to the voters every year simply to approve maintaining existing fire and police staffing levels.
No, they shouldn't take it if they're planning accordingly. They should know how much property tax revenue they received the year before. They should know what their budget looks like, and they should plan accordingly. This is part of the reason for this bill, is to make cities and counties accountable to our constituents, and not just when they decide to do a tax rate hike and then our folks pay for it, and then the billions in property tax relief that we have provided evaporates in the tax rate issue. And so this is about providing accountability. It's making sure cities and counties plan accordingly. And if they do that, they should be able to cover all of their core services that are necessary.
Okay. And I've heard you say that a couple of times about cities and counties planning accordingly and increasing transparency. Is there any, I didn't hear it in our committee meeting, is there any data or evidence that you have, that the legislature has, that cities and counties writ large have not planned appropriately? Do we have evidence of that? I didn't hear any testimony to that effect.
Sure. I mean, all you would need to do is speak to your constituents or speak to my constituents and talk about the raising of the tax rates that have gone on for years. And so what we're doing is holding them more accountable, saying, absolutely, if you need X or Y funds or you need to go over, again, no new revenue rate, what you're getting from last year, plus 2.5%, you can do that. You can absolutely do that. You just have to go to your voters for approval.
Well, actually, Chairman Meyer, I mean, we heard in committee representatives of several cities, including several Republican-run cities, that those cities have reduced their tax rates in recent years. But this doesn't pertain to the tax rate. This pertains to the total revenue the city takes in.
Correct, but all of that, all of that is intertwined. Yes, sir.
All that is what?
Intertwined. All that comes in together.
Sure, but it would not be accurate to say that cities are raising tax rates and therefore this is the need for the bill.
No, my point is more about their overall budget, but all of that plays in. That's how they generate their revenue, is through the tax rates, which we discussed earlier today.
So has there been any evidence that you found that cities and counties have not been transparent in their budgeting process?
We're doing everything we can to include voters as it relates to the taxes that they are paying and why. And this is part of the purpose of the bill.
I understand your purpose in the bill, but is there any evidence that cities and counties have not been transparent? That's my question.
Well, I think what it is about voters having a say, and cities and counties have to be more transparent if they want to go over 2.5%, because they're going to have to present that case to their voters and have their voters approve it.
Okay. And similar to my question about the last bill, the last unfunded mandate, is there any provision in this bill to help cities or counties offset the cost of elections that they would have to have under this bill?
No, but they shouldn't do that. They should plan accordingly. But no, there is nothing to offset any cost of an election. You are correct,
Okay.
sir.
So in a bill then that is supposed to have the goal of saving taxpayer money, it is in fact likely, just to preserve existing public safety budgets, it is in fact likely to cost taxpayers additional money given the cost of running elections. Right?
No, I object to the premise of your question. The premise of your question is wrong. It doesn't assume that there's going to be a shortfall for police and fire, but what we do need to do is have cities and counties plan accordingly, make sure they have the money available for public safety, and that should be one of their, if not their top priorities, it's one of their core functions. So I would disagree with the premise of your question, sir.
Do you disagree that there's a cost to running elections?
I do not.
Okay. And I am correct, there is no provision in the bill that helps a local government pay for the cost of holding an election.
You're correct. There's no funding in this bill, sir.
Okay. So this bill, if elections are to be held, which is what you seem to be encouraging cities and counties to do to make the case for additional public safety funding, this bill will in fact cost taxpayers additional money that they would not otherwise have to spend.
No, I would encourage the cities and counties to be able to budget accordingly and go off of their no new revenue rate and go under 2.5% to where they don't need to go to the voters, if they can do it within the confines of their budget if they're planning accordingly.
And I think based on all the testimony we heard the other day, if cities do that and stay below that 2.5%, that is going to necessitate public safety funding cuts. But thank you for answering my questions.
Mr. Speaker,
Proceed and answer for what purpose?
does the gentleman yield for some questions?
Gentleman yield for questions?
I do.
He yields for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a couple of follow-up questions. I saw that the Texas State Firefighters Association is opposed to this bill. From the testimony they provided in the hearing, can you share a little bit as to why in particular they're opposed to SB 10?
You would need to ask them why they're opposed, but as I stated, this is not a cap, it is merely a trigger. So local cities and counties should be able to pay their firefighters, their police, as much as they need to.
Sure. And Chairman, I'm sure that you're aware that as far as the cost for our firefighters and police department, as far as equipment and other things, that we have through inflation seen that those costs actually go up for them. Is that something that you understand?
I think the cities and counties should plan accordingly and make sure the police and firefighters and all public safety have every tool they need.
And then you, through the testimony, had talked about that they needed a plan accordingly. I was actually interested to what extent do you mean, and are there any suggestions that you have for, in particular, some of our cities that are obviously very concerned? And I bring that up because Representative Turner talked about some of these cities Republican-ran conservative, fiscally conservative cities who very often reduce their tax rates, many of which I represent, including Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Irving, that are very concerned about this particular bill, in particular, not just for being able to meet the services for the constituents, but making sure that we do not underfund and not have the funds needed to make sure that we take care of our firefighters and police departments.
I'm sorry, was there a question?
Sure. Is there any suggestions? You kept saying that they need a plan accordingly.
No, I think, I'm sorry. Please finish.
Oh, no. You keep indicating that these cities, municipalities should plan accordingly, or is there certain things that you believe that they should be doing in those instances that we can return back and let our cities know that?
No, I think those cities, I don't know the inner workings of every city or county in the state of Texas and their budgets. I would just say that they need to deal with the reality of those over 75,000, that they have the ability to go above the no new rate, 2.5%, and plan accordingly as they do for every other factor that goes into their budget.
Thank you. And then also, as far as the city's loss that they are receiving in both state and federal funds, is there any consideration under SB 10 involving that, just for the fact that obviously municipalities are now starting to grapple with and figure out what exactly they're supposed to do as far as budgeting, with the fact that some of the funds that they had depended on in the past, being state and federal funds, may not necessarily be coming to them again in the next budget?
Well, I don't know specifically.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Please excuse Mr. Reynolds because of important business in the district. On motion of Ms. Groven Hawkins, is there objection? Chair is none, so ordered. Following amendment, clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Money.
Chair recognizes Mr. Money.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. This bill is simple. This amendment is simple. It takes this bill and applies it to the rest of Texas. So as Mr. Tinderhold pointed out earlier, less than 5% of Texas cities are affected by this bill as it is, including none of the cities that I represent. That means that even as meager a property tax bill as this is, none of my citizens get relief under the existing bill. And so I knocked on a lot of doors, as I'm sure a lot of you did, as we ran for office, and everybody wants property tax relief. And by voting for this amendment, which just eliminates that $75,000 cap on municipalities, that would make this bill apply to every single municipality and every single county in Texas, so that all Texans get the relief offered by this bill.
Mr. Speaker.
Luther, for what purpose?
Does the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman yield for questions?
I will yield.
He yields for questions.
Representative Money, I also live in a district where most of the taxing entities would be excluded from this. Do you think that all Texans should get some sort of tax relief?
Yes, and I would like to see us do a lot more than what this bill does. But whatever this bill does do, I want it to apply to my district as well, and the voters in my district, and not just voters in the largest cities.
So you're actually saying that small cities matter?
Small cities matter. Taxpayers in small cities matter. We need to make sure that every Texan gets whatever relief is offered.
Great. And I'm asking from a broader governance perspective, is it better to treat small and large communities the same when it comes to controlling property tax increases?
Yeah, I think that there's a time and a place to treat larger and smaller cities differently in some cases. But when you're talking about taxation, we should treat every taxpayer the same. We should treat every city the same. We should treat every county the same. They should operate under the same rules, and then within those rules, they can apply what they think their city wants. And as Mr. Meyer has pointed out, this is not a cap on what a city can spend. It just triggers a voter approval. And so if you really need a fire truck and it goes over the budget, you can ask your people to buy you a fire truck. And so it's just a fundamental fairness and equality across all jurisdictions.
What is the number one, and we have not discussed this, but prior, I'm asking you, what is the number one concern your constituents have when they call your office?
property taxes are too high.
Exactly mine too. So I am very for this amendment, and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker,
Kane, for what purpose?
question for the author.
Gentleman, yield for
I
questions?
will yield.
He yields.
Mr. Money, I'm going to read you a quote. And let me know if you know who said it. This is recently. No taxing entity should raise your property taxes without a 2/3 vote of the people.
That was our governor at the State of the State address.
That was the governor, wasn't it? Thank you.
Repeat it again because it's very
The governor
good.
said no taxing entity should raise your property taxes without a 2/3 vote of the people.
No taxing entity, not just the big ones, but no taxing entity.
Right on. Well, similar to you, while I may live in Harris County, I represent the small cities. Are their property taxes, those don't seem to matter to the state?
I don't know if they matter to the state, but they matter to the property taxpayers. Because like I said, I represent exclusively people who would not be affected by this bill. And yet these people always talk to me about property taxes, whether I'm meeting them in person, at an event, when they call my office, social media, they want relief.
Yeah. Even if it's a small amount of relief, that's what they're demanding, isn't that correct?
I would rather give large relief, but the bill we have is to give small relief to some people, and I want to give that small relief to all people.
Yeah, but just to be clear, though, even if we don't get your amendment on, we'll be voting for this bill, right? I mean, I can't in good conscience not support some relief, but
Yeah.
I think the people that we represent, the people in East Harris County, people in a small rural farming community, believe it or not, that are near Houston, but they're not Houston, they should get relief as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to vote against any property tax relief, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure whatever relief is provided is given to the people in my district.
Excellent. Let's remind them one more time. No taxing entity should raise your property taxes without a 2/3 vote. That's the governor of our state.
That
That's
is
done.
correct.
Thank you.
Dinner all the time. They didn't go out to dinner for 4 years. It went rampant during the Biden years. Just rampant. That's why it
hold an election. That also being said, this is and I've said this in the prior session as well, this is an agreed to bill. We have reached agreement. We worked with the governor's office. We worked with the Senate. This is where the agreement landed, is to have this population exemption of under 75,000. And for those reasons, I move to table the amendment.
Mr. Money to close.
Members, I'm asking you not to vote to table this bill. Most of you represent cities and taxpayers that this bill will not help. And I know we hear from our mayors, we hear from our county commissioners and people that say this will constrain our spending. That's the spending that our taxpayers want us to constrain. That is what, we don't have a statewide tax, property tax. We have local property taxes, and they come to us and they say, our local property taxes are out of control, please help us. This bill doesn't even cut their budget. It just says they have to grow their budget slower unless they get taxpayer approval.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman, yield for questions?
I will yield for questions.
He yields for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative. Representative, I just want to make sure I hear you correctly. All your amendment does is say whatever the cap proposal is, it applies to everyone, not just cities greater than 75,000.
That is correct.
Okay, and so, we may like this amendment for different reasons. You like it because it brings everybody into the fold. I like it because if we're going to make these kinds of decisions, then everybody's going to have to live by them and not just those of us in the larger cities. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I would ask everybody to follow the money.
Thank you.
Perez, for what purpose?
Does the gentleman yield for questions?
The gentleman yield for questions?
Yes, I will yield
Yields
for
for
questions.
questions. Representative Money, isn't it true that the vast majority of cities in this bill that will not see relief are those that are represented by Republican representatives?
I would think so.
Are you aware that in Marble Falls, their tax levy jumped 213%, but their population only grew by 31%? That's a Republican representative who represents that city.
I wasn't aware of that, but
in Blanco, Allen, Wiley, in many small Texas cities, the tax levies are far exceeding the population growth, but taxpayers in those cities will not have the same opportunity as in larger cities.
That's absolutely correct. And it's our voters that are demanding this. And so we need to listen to all of our voters, not just the voters in the big cities.
To your knowledge, was there any policy reason to exclude those that are under 75,000? Because many of these are in suburbs that have high tax rates, that have the same problem as larger cities, but they're not included for whatever reason in this bill.
Yeah, you would have to ask the bill author about that and why he did what he did. I can only speak as to what I'm trying to do, which is include all of Texas under this bill.
Okay. Well, I think it makes sense to have property tax relief in all areas of Texas, not just in larger cities, because many of the small cities are experiencing many of the same issues. Thank you for the...
Thank you. Please vote no on the motion to table.
Members, the motion to table has been withdrawn. Mr. Meyer is going to accept the amendment. Is there any objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Following amendment, clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Hopper.
Chair is Mr. Hopper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is a really simple amendment. In rural Texas, we're seeing just an explosion of MUDs. MUDs, as you might know, are direct competition for cities, and there's no reason why they should be exempted by this bill. So I would appreciate if you vote yes on this motion, or this amendment.
Mr. Meyer in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, MUDs aren't included in the tax code. They are found in the water code. This amendment isn't germane to this bill, and for that reason, I move to table it.
Mr. Hopper to close.
I ask that you vote no on the motion to table, please.
Mr. Hopper sends up an amendment. Mr. Meyer has moved to table the amendment. This is a record vote on the motion to table. Clerk, ring the bell. Show Mr. Meyer voting aye. Have all members voted? Mr. Hayes voting nay. Have all members voted? There being 61 ayes and 74 nays, the motion to table fails. The amendment is now acceptable. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none. Amendment is accepted. Following amendment, clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Patterson.
Chair is Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment is very straightforward. It does two things. First, it reduces the cap from 2.5%, which is outlined in the bill, to 1%, but it exempts out all public safety spending. So it completely exempts out spending for police officers, firefighters, jails, fire trucks, everything having to do with public safety, and I would ask for your support for this amendment.
Mr. Patterson says of an amendment, it's acceptable to the author. Is there objection? There is objection. This is a record vote. Clerk, ring the bell. Meyer voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? 94 ayes, 43 nays. The amendment is adopted. Please excuse Ms. Leo Wilson to attend a meeting on the Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs on motion of Mr. Lozano. Is there objection? Chair is none so ordered. Mr. Bell for an announcement.
If you're a member of the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, we're supposed to be having a formal meeting right now at 3W9. Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, formal 3W9.
Please excuse Mr. Phelan because of an illness on motion of Mr. Metcalf. Is there objection? Chair is none, so ordered. Please excuse Mr. Cecil Bell because of important business in the district. To attend a meeting on intergovernmental affairs on motion of Ms. Holt. Is there objection? Chair is none, so ordered. Members, the House is going to stand at ease until 1:50 so we can take a look at the remaining amendments and see how they interact with the bill as amended. The House stands at ease.